I remember having this feeling of looking at a boss I had, and I was like, do you ever just relax or enjoy your family or your friends or go to happy hour? Like this is so unrealistic.
I love bookkeeping.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for listening to the I Love Bookkeeping podcast. My name is Hannah Robinson.
And I'm Melissa Honan.
And thank you for tuning in. Today, we're going to be talking about something that might be uncharted waters for some of you, but we are going to be discussing how to be a better boss, all about employee retention and creating a culture of work-life balance in your workplace. So for those of you who are looking to expand your practice, who already have, or want to do it down the road, this is going to be a great episode for you to tune into. Melissa, I also can't wait to pick your brain because you are a boss. And I feel like you do a really good job of it.
Thank you. That's because you don't work for me. I feel like I need to. This is going to be an awkward episode for me personally because I actually know quite a few of the people that I work with that are on my team listen to this podcast because they're so supportive and they have given me such great feedback. So I hope I do them proud with this one. But the first thing is that, and this is like something that I struggle with, I literally hate being the boss or like people referring to me as the boss or thinking of myself as the boss. I do know that that is natural though. So, for those of you that are like, I'll never be the boss, like I'll be the cool boss. That can't happen. That can't exist. Unfortunately, as much as we hate that idea, your employees are going to see you as the boss. So it's really what you do with that to be a better boss rather than have this idea that, oh, when I run my own company, like I'm not going to be a boss. I'm going to be like one of the guys. You just, spoiler alert, you won't be, you will be their boss. That is the way that they will see you. So this is how to take that and develop into the boss that you want to be essentially.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's funny, like if you circle back to childhood, I think when you think of, let's say you're in a classroom and your teacher assigns you a group project, I feel like there's one person in every group who just naturally takes charge and organizes and delegates. That's me. That was me.
Yes,
like,
that's me.
I was like, okay, you do this, I'll do this. Break, we're done. But not everybody has that kind of personality where they just like to jump in front of things. And so I think one thing that people really need to evaluate when they're going to become somebody's boss, I think they need to really think about the life that they would want for themselves as an employee. I feel like we've all had jobs where our boss kind of had an unrealistic standard of, I think we've all kind of experienced having a job where we have a boss that's like overcommitted to the job and isn't really an advocate for work-life balance. And it's unrealistic because I remember having this feeling of looking at a boss I had and I was like, do you ever just relax or enjoy your family or your friends or go to happy hour? Like this is so unrealistic.
That is so funny.
Yeah. I mean, I think you've experienced that.
Yes. And that's like the first thing that I tell people, like if I'm working with like, a new bookkeeping business owner, one-on-one, is to literally think about the worst boss that they've ever had first. Like think about that. We all have that person and think about how you do not want to be that person. And her name is Krista. And I think about her all the time. Because I think about the absolute person that I do not want to be. And she was very manipulative, very unsupportive of other women. She created like an unnecessary competitive environment between members of the team. Like it was very toxic in every aspect. And when I think about that, it just honestly, I feel sick to my stomach. Even to this day, like I have not worked in that environment in 7+ years. And I still get that like churning of the stomach when I think about what it felt like to work there. And I use that as my motivation to not have that environment where I work. And so, if I'm ever given the feedback, which does happen, that something is not in line with the company culture that I want to be, it happens. We all kind of diverge from our goals. We're humans. We make mistakes. I really I get that same feeling in my stomach. I'm like, I'm not going to be that person. All right, how do we change course and get back going? So I think it's a great, discovery session for anybody that's going to essentially be a boss to sit down, think about all of the bad bosses you've had, write down why they were bad, because that's your why as to what you're not going to be. And think about if you have the good bosses that you've had and what made them a good boss. And it's a great exercise to really figure out what you do and don't want to be. And then you can figure out the steps for how to get there.
Well, and I think one of the most important first steps you can take is just being open to other opinions other than yourself. It's super frustrating to be at a workplace where there's not an open line of communication between you and whoever is managing you. And I think one of the hallmarks of being a great boss is being open to hearing other ideas and other opinions. And as simple as that sounds, that's pretty rare to come by, I feel like.
It is. And I think it's also even harder to practice as a boss because you might say, and I've done this where I'm like, this is an open environment. I want your opinions. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me your ideas. But that doesn't mean that people are going to be inherently comfortable just doing that. Because if you think about it, it's a trauma response. So if you're coming from a negative work environment, even if your boss is saying that they are open to your ideas and they want you to bring up your thoughts and, criticism of the company, you're thinking, oh, hell no. I'm not going to do that. That's a sure way to get fired. Why would I criticize the CEO of this company? That's insane. And so you have to build a foundation of trust before you can get to that point. And a good way that I do that is to look like an idiot in front of the team as often as possible. And the way that I do that is because I express all of my ideas and thoughts and try to poke holes in things. And that's the creative process, right? Is to throw out ideas. If you think about, if you've ever watched Mad Men and you have all these guys in the writer's room and they're just throwing out stupid ideas until they find one, that's how all things work, right? You just have to throw out ideas and then you might bounce off my idea and then bounce off another. And we're working and we're grooving together to come up with something. And in that process, you're going to throw out some stupid ideas and you're going to make an idiot of yourself. And if you make that essentially the environment, right, where you're really not an idiot, but you're going to feel like an idiot. That's the difference. I just want to say you're not an idiot if you do this, but you're going to feel like one a little bit. But create that environment where it's okay to just have ideas and to talk about them and to work on them. And they might not be perfect, but that's the process, right? So you have to trust the process in order to create a foundation of trust so that other people will join in on that.
Well, and I think a great way to establish trust among your employees with the boss and employee relationship. Oh, I know for me personally, a way that I've really started to trust somebody that I'm working under is kind of having a heart to heart about what your employees' goals are and what they want to accomplish and finding ways to help them get there and check in and just kind of get on their level and discuss your goals and be open to hearing what they say too. Because I think that's something that everyone goes into, especially if it's a new job. Everyone goes into it with a goal in mind, even if it's something small or if it's something monumental. I think it's really important to build trust and hear people out and hear what they think and hear what they want to do and ask them about themselves and ask them about what they kind of expect for their work-life balance and for what they expect to learn from this job and what they want to learn. I think that's a great way to build trust and create this culture of work-life balance.
You're so right. That goes back to, I think we've touched on this a few times, which is that everybody just wants to be heard. And so the key there is to really listen. And I've seen a lot. And if I've had too much coffee, I've been, I've been guilty of this as well, where, a manager or a boss is having a meeting with an employee and they're really just talking at that person or oversharing their opinions of the employee or the work that they're doing or the goals that they have, when it really does need to be more of a listening session. And, even in from a sales perspective, one of the best ways to get the information that you need is to be quiet, because it's the human instinct to just fill space. Right. And so if you do give that space to just sit there and listen and don't just jump back in with an opinion, typically people will just continue to talk. So if they're not comfortable sharing with you at first, obviously you can ask probing questions and really try to get them to open up to you that way. But it's really going to take time and space to build that relationship so that they feel comfortable sharing. And then what's on you is to really listen and let them know that they were heard through your actions afterwards. So, if if they're telling you their goals and you're saying, oh, I'm going to help you with that, what specifically are you going to do to help them with that? And then making sure that you actually do it.
Today's show is brought to you by Keeper, the one app to run your bookkeeping business. Keeper helps you get faster client responses with your own custom branded QuickBooks integrated client portal. Finally, you can say goodbye to those pesky spreadsheets full of uncategorized transactions. Keeper also helps you catch those embarrassing coding errors before your clients do. And with Keeper, you can generate beautiful custom reports that your clients will absolutely love to read. To find out more, go to keeper.app. That's keeper.app. Mention I Love Bookkeeping to get 20% off your first 3 months. Again, go to keeper.app to find out more. Thank you for listening.
Once you've gotten to know your new employee or current employee a little bit better, I think you can find better and more personalized ways to motivate them and set a good example in your workplace of, hey, your goals really matter to me. You hitting this mark is so important to me. I want to find ways that motivate you. And I think one of the great ways to do that is to reward good performance with something that the individual employee would value. I think go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say motivation is so important. And this is something that I've actually been reading about because there are different types of motivation. And so not everybody is reward-based motivation. And so, and that's so strange to me in a sense, just because that's kind of how I'm motivated as a salesperson. I'm like, yeah, boom, oxytocin hit, close that sale, get my reward, which is money, because I am, money focused, motivated. Not everybody is motivated by rewards, and not everybody is motivated by money. And that was such a turning point for me as a manager and as a business owner, because that is always how I've been motivated. But there's 9 different types of motivation. And reward-based is one of them. There's attitude. I have to look this up. There's attitude, and then
I think verbal praise, fear-based. I think praise.
Yeah, creative, achievement, competence, power. There's, depending on which way you look up, you have rewards or incentives. But the other, fear of consequences. So that's fear-based. So some people are focused on a reward, but then you have other people where if they get that reward, that's not going to mean the same thing to them as, they're avoiding the negative consequence. That's what's important to them. And then you have achievement, where they want to achieve a milestone, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they need a reward at the end of it. So I think, like you mentioned, Hannah, is, getting to know your employee, but keep that in the back of your head that as you get to know them, you need to determine what is actually going to motivate them. And I have found the best way to do that is to ask them, because this is still a really new concept to me. And I still have to like talk myself out of, okay, not everybody cares about money. That's weird to me, but okay, cool. Like you do you. What does motivate you?
Yeah. I mean, I think of me personally, because I used to work in an environment where you were rewarded kind of by milestones. And I never found that to be very motivating for me. I'm definitely money motivated for sure.
So that milestone came with like a check. You'd be like,
yes,
oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. But if it was like moving up a level, I was like, okay,
yeah, whatever.
Big whoop. I want my money. Like that's how I was. But I think me personally, like I get motivated by hearing encouraging praise almost. If I'm doing a good job by something, it's nice to hear from your boss that, hey, you did a really good job on this. Keep it up. I think that's encouraging because some people, if they don't get any feedback, they don't really know if they're doing the right thing or not. And I know myself personally, I tend to second guess things. So when I don't hear you're doing a great job or this is the right thing or keep it up, I know that I tend to second guess myself and get confused. And so I think me personally, my biggest motivation is A, rewards, aka money, and B, praise or encouragement. That's how I roll. That's kind of how I function. But it's interesting. I've worked with people who, you're right, their motivators are completely different. They want to move up a level or they're really afraid of being fired. And I think that fear-based motivation is so terrible to be in a work environment. I think almost everybody has experienced being in a fear-based work environment, and it's scary. And I think it makes you second guess yourself. And I think it makes the quality of your work go down. For me personally, that's how I felt when I was working in a fear-based environment, because I was just on edge and trying to impress people or trying to not get in trouble. That to me is, as a boss, I think that's like the worst thing you can do for your company culture.
I agree. And I'd love to hear from any of our listeners, like what type of motivation do they need? And especially if you are like a fear-based motivator, like I'd love to hear that from their perspective, because in a sense, what we're saying is that it might not necessarily be the boss that is intentionally setting fear, but that is actually what the employee is saying that they need to focus on those negative consequences. I think in a sense that might be similar to the people that procrastinate into the last minute. I wonder if they're the same people, because they're procrastinating and putting it on themselves to put them into that fear-based motivation, which is, I'm going to miss this deadline if I don't get this done. And I've now put myself into a corner where I only have an hour to do it, so I have to get it done. I wonder if those are essentially the same people, where again, it's not that the environment is doing that, but they're doing that to themselves.
And we could take a deep dive into this, but I almost wonder if people who are motivated by fear, if it's almost like a trauma response. Because I feel like
we're going to need a psychologist for that.
I know.
I think.
I know we need to get a psychologist on here for an episode, but coming from, I've personally experienced a really toxic work environment that was fear-based, and it not only wore down on like my mental and emotional health, it wore down on the quality of my work. I was so nervous and I was so concerned with not getting yelled at or not being punished or like publicly ridiculed by my boss that it almost didn't even become a place of work. It felt like, I don't know, maybe the equivalent to boarding school or reform school. It was very.
Do you need to call out your Krista? Because that's what it sounds like. Like, go
oh
ahead.
My gosh, I'm not going to say any names because I don't want to get sued.
You're not there yet. No.
Okay, see? No. if they're listening, they know.
They know who they are.
You know who you are. But it wasn't even a work environment anymore. And that's why after leaving that industry, at my last hair and makeup stint, that's why leaving that industry left such a bad taste in my mouth. And I was adjusting to actually working with a company that encourages work-life balance and has a great company culture, which bookkeepers.com, I'll brag for a second. Great company culture. It's very open. It's pretty casual with, I guess, freely expressing your opinions. Ideas are always welcome. It's going from an environment that I was in to this environment totally changed how I saw work and how I saw being employed. Because it became something that wasn't such a burden. And I think that kind of circles back to our first point of evaluate the life that you want for yourself as an employee and implement that in becoming a good boss. Because if you've experienced being in a toxic workplace where everything is fear-based, it doesn't even feel like work. You can't get anything done almost because you're so focused on being scared and doing the right thing and not getting yelled at.
And I know that's why a lot of people have gone to bookkeepers.com to start their own bookkeeping business, because they've gotten to that place where they're like, this can't be, is this what the next 30 years of my life is going to look like?
Yes.
No.
Yeah. I mean, I can't even say it enough how important it is. And that, I think that first point we made about evaluating the life that you want for yourself, I think that is the best thing you can do as a boss. It's almost like kind of the golden rule. Treat people how you want to be treated. It's so simple, but it's so effective.
Yeah. And I think that honestly, the best way to do that too is to ask them, is to just be upfront about communicating if you don't know, because this is something that has to learn, like that you have to learn over time because of the experiences that you've had in the past, especially the experiences that I've had in the past. And so I lean a lot on my bad bosses, and I think of everything that they did and I try to do the opposite, but I'm still a work in progress. And so I have to ask my employees sometimes, like, hey, like, would you want to do this? What do you think? What are your opinions? How could we improve team morale? What could we do here? And a lot of it are things that just don't come to me naturally. And so I think that being a better boss is really just, like you had mentioned earlier, Hannah, all about communicating effectively. Because, at the end of the day, even if you have all of these tools in your toolbox on how to be a better boss, it's really going to be individual to that person that you are working with. And it's not one size fits all. And as soon as you think, oh man, yeah, I had them take this 15 different personality tests and they're an INTJ number 8 and whatever the hell that means. So I know that this is exactly what motivates them. Well, guess what? They're going to be an anomaly, and you just should ask them. And I think we need to have another episode on personality assessments because I've got opinions.
I think those are so interesting, and that's a completely different rabbit hole that we don't need to go down because we will talk for another hour. This episode obviously is going to resonate with a lot of our listeners, I think, especially even if you're not in the place where you're ready to hire, or if you want to do it down the road. I think that we all can come from a place where we've thought about the kind of boss that we want to be. So if you have some tips for us, or if you just want to share your horror stories with a bad boss, please shoot us an email at success@ilovebookkeeping.com. Again, that is success@ilovebookkeeping.com. My name is Hannah Robinson.
And I'm Melissa Honan.
And thank you for listening to the I Love Bookkeeping podcast.
I love bookkeeping. Here's a little shout to all my friends working hard at keeping the books. You want to change your life, you want to grow that biz, it's not as hard as it looks. Be a money guide, a profit coach, step up your game and see